So you have people that voted in the 2020 election. You know that a lot of the Republicans don't really want definitely black people voting in anything. And I say voting is a right that should be afforded to everybody if they so choose to. You have a right to vote. And if you don't want to vote, you have a right to do that as well. I personally believe that people that go to jail and they get out of jail, you shouldn't be telling them they can't vote. I mean, they already did their time in society. It was in jail. How could they vote all that time? But in Florida, you know, Ron DeSantis, you know, you definitely one of these Republicans. He created a special office to go after people for voter fraud. And there are some brothers that got caught up in that from the 2020 election. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Not just going to turn a blind eye to this. The days of that happening in Florida are over.
It was a splashy press conference from Broward County.
We're going to be very watchful of the people who vote.
In August, the governor, flanked by local law enforcement and state VIPs, announced his new Elections Crime and Security Office.
This was my idea.
Had made its first catch. Nearly 20 former felons caught illegally voting in 2020.
It's not just going to be 20 arrests. This is the opening salvo of an office that was just set up on July 1st.
Though a new Florida amendment now lets many former felons vote, those convicted of murder or certain sex offenses are excluded.
No kind of way is fair.
Which is how Robert Simpson of Palm Beach County made the list.
It's got to be some kind of setup.
Now 64, he was convicted and served time for murder 3 decades ago. Like many of these newly charged ex-felons, Simpson says he too thought his voting rights had been restored, especially after filling out voter applications, then being sent voter registration cards.
I didn't walk up in somewhere and just try to vote without the right procedures. I had everything in my possession to do it legal.
While these recent arrests are fueling outrage and disgust among voting rights experts.
It's outrageous. We have a system that is designed to entrap people effectively.
And a growing number of legal questions over intent and blame.
None of this voting was the fault of the supervisor.
This is just the first step. There's many more in the pipeline.
We're also learning more about the state office that catapulted these former felons into the election spotlight.
This is the day that we begin taking fraud seriously.
Pete Antonacci leads the unit. A former state prosecutor, he most recently served as supervisor of elections in Broward County during 2020 when a few of these ex-felons illegally voted there.
This is the first of it. You'll see more of these actions.
But beyond him, we've discovered the new unit with a total budget of $3.5 million currently has just 2 additional employees, a significant worker shortage for an office earmarked for 31 positions, 10 of them from Florida's Department of Law Enforcement alone, whose own agents work these recent ex-felon cases.
We know nothing.
Professor Dan Smith is a political science professor at UF. He's also testified in voting rights cases against the DeSantis administration.
We don't know who their staff is. We don't know who their database managers are. We don't know what kind of algorithms they're using to match people to various databases. Nothing is transparent.
Nobody should be going to jail for that. And let me tell you why. Because y'all gave them those voter cards. So that means when they submitted their application, you're supposed to run their names in the system to see if they were eligible to vote. So that means you didn't do your due diligence at the state level to check to make sure they was good. If they were not good, then you're supposed to send them a letter back and say, hey, you know, we see you registered to vote, but due to, you know, we looked in the system and you really wasn't eligible due to the charges you had, XYZ. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to vote, you know, in the election, XYZ. That's all. So what you mean to tell me because the state is being lazy, because they're being lazy, and not doing their freaking jobs and checking people, and because you just went on ahead and say, oh, they registered, let me go ahead and give them a voter registration, you know, you're good to vote, when actually they were not good to vote. So why isn't the people that gave them the cards aren't the one getting in trouble? Why? And then also what they need to look at too with these Republicans is that you need to look at the political party and candidates that they voted for in the election. Because I want to know how many people that voted for Republicans is going to get caught up in this too. I want to know. Now, you know, I'm not a fan of the Democrat Party at all. I'm not. But I do know that the Republicans like to target definitely black people to try to stop them from voting. Because that's what all this is about. Just trying to scare black people from voting. And once again, if a black person chooses to vote, that's their right. And they choose not to vote, that's their right as well. Black people don't have to vote if they, you know, don't want to. But if they choose to, let them do so. That is a God-given right for everybody in the country to vote if they so chose to. And you have to understand the first laws that came on the books to stop people from voting was due to stop black people from voting. Just like gun laws. Gun laws were brought in to stop black people from possessing firearms. Every time you do the research into the history, it always leads right back to us and trying to stop us from participating in a so-called democracy. But these people should also, fight this on a federal level, because what they're doing isn't right at all. It isn't. And I know they're going to just do this to target black people to stop them from voting because, DeSantis got an election coming up. And they said that, Florida is always a toss-up state. 1 way it can go Democrat, 1 minute it can go Republican. It's not like really a solid red state. It never is. DeSantis actually barely beat Andrew Gillum, believe it or not. He didn't win it in a landslide. So he knows that, hey, Republicans are on the chopping block. And that's the thing. You had a lot of Democrats move down to Florida from New York. You think they'd change the Republican Party? No. And if they move there and they got registered there, and you think they're not going to vote Democrat? That's just bottom line. That's why he's scared in a way. He don't have that election in the bag like he think he got it. So he's trying to scare black folks from coming out to vote against him. Because, let's call it what it is. Black folks vote Democrat. Not to say I support that, because I don't. I support policy. What policy are you going to give the community? Not just blind voting because somebody has a D in their name. But yeah, this is all politically motivated. It's completely politically motivated. And definitely people in Florida need to fight this and sue to get that particular office, removed. Because that's going to target people. Definitely black people. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Those of you who live in Florida, what's your opinion on this? And the governor's race. What do y'all think about that's coming up? I mean, you think DeSantis is going to win it? Or you think the Democrat person going to win it? Because DeSantis is doing everything he can to bend over backwards for these people. But he had a lot of Democrats move to Florida, so we'll see.